So now that our template is fully designed and built out, we obviously need to make this mobile responsive. So we also need to consider the fact that we have some hover effects here. So for example, as we hover over this, which as you know are completely redundant for tablet and mobile since we do not have the hover attribute. So there's no point having this hover for the tablet or mobile screen sizes because it isn't going to work. So what we need to consider what we're going to do there for those screen sizes is how we're going to display this section. Now, of course, when it comes to all of these more advanced scrolling effects and all of the bits that we've got here, you know, it's not just going to be as plain as and simple as adjusting a bit of padding and stuff for different screen sizes. In most instances, we're likely going to have to completely redo that particular section and then just use some display conditions to hide that and display that particular section from those different screen sizes. So again, we're going to get into some of the advanced mobile responsiveness techniques, how we can start to really customize the website completely dependent on the screen size that our visitors are viewing on. So let's get into that now. So what we actually want to do first of all is let's just take a look at this header. So at the minute we obviously have this this hover effect, which looks great on a desktop and obviously not so great and pretty pointless on a tablet or mobile. So what we can actually do here is let's just go ahead and just duplicate this whole section. So this top level container, let's duplicate that. Now you'll notice that I've also renamed these sections just so that we can order them so that we know what they are just for organizational purposes. So I'm also going to just rename these now. We've got Hero there, and this is going to be Hero Desktop. And then we've got the Hero Tablet. So this is going to be the tablet version. So we can actually change those display conditions now. So let's select this desktop version of our Hero. Let's come along to the advanced. Let's come down to where is responsiveness. And then we just want to hide this from tablet and we want to hide this from mobile. So this is now only going to display on desktop. So with that done, let's come down to the tablet version of the Hero section. Let's just apply similar settings there. So over to advanced, down to responsiveness. Now let's hide this on desktop, hide this on mobile, so that we only see this one on a tablet. So now we can see this one is the only one visible because this is grayed out. And then as we come through those different screen sizes, so let's come into the responsive mode. As we come into tablet now, we can see this one isn't displayed and this one is. So now that we're in tablet responsive mode, let's actually start redesigning what this is going to look like. So I'm just going to drop that down as the hierarchy. Let's do that. We can see that we've got where are we? This is the heading. No, it's this one here. This is the one. So we have here, which is the background image. So let's actually go ahead and delete this container now because we no longer need that background image with that hover. So let's just delete that. So we hit delete. And now what we want to do is we want to add a new image within the same container. And then what we're going to do is change its positioning. So let's come down to image. So in fact, let's use a featured image here. Since we haven't used a featured image yet, it's been pretty redundant because we've not dynamically used it on any of our templates. So we can use the image here. That's absolutely fine. And at this point, it's worth mentioning that you will want a featured image that is going to be a similar ratio to this actual screen size of the laptop. Otherwise, it isn't going to work. So just make sure that your featured images or whichever image you're going to dynamically inject into this post is going to be the correct ratio for the image you're trying to impose it on top of. So let's play around with this. Hopefully it's the right size. If not, we can tweak it in Photoshop or any of those other, maybe Canva or any of those other free tools to make that fit. So let's actually come along to this image now. What we want to do is we want to make this, let's think about this. First of all, let's come along to advanced and let's change this position to absolute. So now this is going to sit up in that top left position. So as we know, that is what absolute does. And then we can adjust the offsets so that it sits in the center of that screen. So first of all, let's actually come back to the image here, which is the laptop. I'm going to rename this the laptop image, just so that we know. Laptop image. And then we've got the featured image, which will be dynamically injected. So the laptop image, now I'm going to come to advanced. I'm going to change the Z index of this to maybe 2 or 10. As long as it's higher, that's fine. So that it sits on top of that featured image. Now with the featured image, let's come along to so we can see that this is too wide. So let's just reduce the size of that. So we can come along to the style. We can adjust the width here in %. So we can get it around the same size. So maybe something like that, I think looks good. I'm happy with 71. We could go with 72. And now what can we give it a height? It's no point adjusting the height actually, because that will distort the ratio. So what we want to do now is, if we come to advanced, we can now apply that offset, right? So we're looking for the vertical offset. So let's start adding some offset so that that comes down, so that it sits within that screen, so that it looks something like that. Now we can see that that looks a lot better. Maybe 19 for that. And as we scroll, because we've set the width as a percentage, if you remember when we set the width here as a percentage, it's now going to scale depending on the width of the screen as a percentage, so that it always sits within that laptop. And that is exactly what we're looking for. So that is our first bit taken care of. We could in fact add 1 or 2 more. We can see that that's still not quite showing fully. So like that is good. That is looking a lot better. So we have that. That is this section taken care of. So let's close all of these bits up, just so that we can keep organized. So now we have our Hero desktop and our Hero tablet. So that is that taken care of. Let's carry on finishing off this on a tablet screen size first. Then what we can do is we can come back and do this all again for a mobile. So how are we going to make this look good on a tablet? Because as you can see at the minute, it is overflowing past the image of the phone. It's just not looking great. We can see it's overflowing below. So the only way really that we can avoid this is, because this image is only this high, as we can see, it has no padding above it. What is basically going to happen is, this is obviously got a negative margin to that image there. Therefore, it is overflowing past the actual image. So we can actually do that by offsetting that with some padding. But before we do that, let's first do what we've done with the Hero section. And that is by duplicating this iPhone section. I'm going to duplicate this. I'm going to come to this one, rename this desktop. And then underneath that, where we have the other iPhone section, we'll rename this one tablet. Like that. So we can also apply those conditions, those display conditions. So this section is going, or this container, if we come to advanced, we come to responsive, we're going to hide this on tablet and mobile. And then the tablet one, we're going to also come to advanced, responsiveness, and then we're going to hide this one on desktop and mobile, so that it's only displayed on tablet. So what we actually need to do to stop this overflow at the top and the bottom is we actually need to use a transparent image which actually has some additional space above it and below it. Because if you think about it, at the minute, this transparent phone image is literally only as big as this container, as you can see. So all of that space above that image and that space below is still going to be visible for any overflow. So what I've actually done is I've got another image here which looks like this, and all I have done here is use that same original image, only I've added a background color to it, a solid color at the top and at the bottom as well. So now when we actually drag this in, let's do that right now. So if we actually select this image, let's change this to the image that I've just dragged in, which is this one. If we now select, we can see that as we scroll, that color is now solid. Therefore, we are not seeing that website image below it as we scroll. So that is exactly what we want. Now, we can still see, even after doing that there is still some overflow, but we can see that is because that website image has just got too much negative margin because it's sitting way up there. It should be down here, right? So we can actually do that now with our website image. So let's come back to our website image. Let's come back to the advanced. Let's uncheck the link values and we'll have to apply that negative margin again. Let's maybe go with minus 500, maybe 600, maybe 700. 700, that gives us something to start with. So now if we start that with maybe 693, now as we scroll down, we can see that that is looking much, much better. And that scrolls all the way down to the end. And that is exactly what we want. So that is looking really good. I'm happy with that. Of course, we want to do something with the description here because that text looks way too big. For my liking, let's have a look. In general, I would say that that text looks too big for tablet. So we can actually edit that using the defaults. So let's come back to the defaults here. Let's come to our global site settings. Let's select our text. So global fonts and then text. And then let's make that for tablet. Let's make this a bit smaller. So this is in pixels. Let's go with rem. So let's go with maybe 1, which I think is too big. We could go with 0.8. So that looks like that. That looks a lot neater already. I'm happy with that. So looking at that, that is a lot better. So there isn't really much more that we would need to do with this section. And then we can save those site settings. Come back to our editor. And then just make sure everything is working as expected. So let's take a look at it now. So we can see that it's working. We can see it has a bit of space extra at the top there. And that is because we've used fixed pixels, if you remember. So as we scale that bigger and smaller as a tablet, it increases the size. And that is a simple fix. Stupidly, we actually used a fixed pixels, didn't we? A static pixel width there. So let's actually come down to our website image. Now where we have this margin set there, let's just go ahead and delete that. Let's make them all 0. And what we want to do, we want to set this as a percentage. So let's now set this as a percentage. So let's go with maybe, see what we need. A minus 57 there. If we take a look at this now. Oh, we need to come to the top first, don't we? Make sure we're at the top there. So let's maybe make that 158. We can see that it needs to be a bit more. So this is now a minus 203 negative margin there. So as we scroll down, that is working as expected. But now as we scroll, get bigger and smaller, it doesn't increase or decrease that padding that we saw or that extra space above the header of our website image. So that is working exactly as expected. Let's make sure that that is. We can still see we're getting, as the tablet gets to the very smallest size, we get this little bit extra here. So we could actually avoid that by coming to the iPhone image. We actually add some padding to the top. So we can see we've got some negative padding there. Let me, some negative margin. Let me remove that so that it sits in the middle. And that is absolutely fine. So I'm not sure where that negative 81 came from, but we can see now that is looking absolutely perfect, exactly as we wanted it. So it's good to see the troubleshooting things you have to go through to try to achieve the design that you want. There are ways, there is no one set way to achieve anything. We could have even tried to set the website image as a position of absolute and then offsetted that and seen how that worked. There are lots of different ways to experiment and explore as we dive deeper into these advanced techniques because these aren't necessarily things that everybody knows how to do. So, you know, when we're sort of at the edge of creating all of these new effects that are really showing off our abilities, you know, there's going to be troubleshooting times where we're going to have to troubleshoot what might be going on and experiment with new ways to do it. So that is now looking really good. I'm happy with the contact form as well. That is absolutely fine. Bearing in mind, because we did use a template for that, it should actually respond depending on the screen size automatically, because it was designed like that, with designed like that in mind. So that is absolutely fine. I'm happy with that. And that's going to bring this lesson to an end. And in the next lesson, what we're going to do is pick this up and then design this all now for the mobile.